So my last day pregnant before I have to go to the hospital for my 37-week C-section. Y'all, today I become a mother of four. Lucky four little pretty girls. And this is me getting to the hospital to have them. And these are the lovely nurses that.
A 19-year-old woman named Davonye Cummings was found dead inside her Oakland apartment just days after giving birth to twins. She was a mother of four. Her body was discovered with a single gunshot wound. There was no sign of forced entry, no sign of a struggle. The apartment showed no damage. Nothing was stolen. Nothing appeared out of place. The suspect is her 32-year-old boyfriend named Terrence Miles. He has been arrested and charged with her murder. According to police, he was the last person known to be with her. Authorities believe she allowed him into the apartment voluntarily. There is no evidence of a break-in. Shortly after the shooting, a phone call was made. It was not to emergency services. The call was placed to Terrence Miles' mother. This phone call may contain information critical to understanding what happened. Investigators are reviewing the content and timeline of the call. Davonye Cummings had no prior criminal record. She had recently returned home from the hospital with her newborns. There were no prior domestic incident reports on file between her and Terrence Miles at the time of the incident. Police responded after receiving information from Terrence Miles' mother. Upon arrival, they found Davonye Cummings deceased. The weapon used in the shooting has not been publicly confirmed. No other individuals were reported at the scene. The investigation is ongoing. Authorities are reviewing phone records, surveillance footage, and witness interviews. Terrence Miles remains in custody. This case involves no chase, no escape, and no witnesses. It is a contained event with clear suspects, a defined location, and a short timeline. The unanswered questions now focus on motive, the content of the phone call, and the events leading up to the shot. This is a full story of every move, every brutal detail. If you're captivated by real crime stories that peel back the layers of truth, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us as we uncover real cases, raise awareness, and give a voice to the voiceless. Before we dive into today's story, we want to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? And how do you feel as the story unfolds? Welcome to Deadly Crime Unmasked, the show where we expose the shocking crimes that rip through communities and the chilling secrets lurking behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Don't forget to subscribe and activate notifications. You won't want to miss the gripping story that's coming up. Now, let's dive in. Davonye Cummings was a 19-year-old woman residing in Oakland, California. At the time of her death, she had recently given birth to a pair of twins. These twins were her third and fourth children, making her a mother of four by the age of 19. She was living in a private apartment located within Oakland city limits. The residence was not shared with roommates, according to initial reports. This was her primary place of living, and the same apartment where she was later found deceased. There were no signs of forced entry or struggle discovered at the scene. She had no known criminal history. A check of public databases and available police records revealed no prior arrests, convictions, or pending charges. Her name had not appeared in any criminal investigations before the incident. Authorities confirmed that she was not under surveillance or investigation for any activity at the time of her death. At the time of the incident, Davonye Cummings was involved in a relationship with a 32-year-old man named Terrence Miles. This relationship had been ongoing for an unspecified period, and according to neighbors, the man was frequently seen entering and leaving her apartment. Police reports later identified him as a suspect in the case. He had a history of previous contact with Davonye Cummings, and there were no reports of restraining orders, prior assaults, or public disputes linked to the two individuals. On February 28, 2025, a 19-year-old woman gave birth to twin babies at a local hospital in Oakland, California. This brought the total number of her children to four. She had two older children and now the newborn twins. According to available sources, there were no medical complications reported during delivery. She was discharged shortly after and returned home with the newborns. In the days following her delivery, Davonye Cummings was home in her Oakland apartment, caring for her four children. There is no reported disturbances during this period. According to neighbors, there were no loud arguments or visible signs of distress. She was not known to law enforcement prior to this time. The name of the apartment complex has not been publicly confirmed, but the unit was described as private and secured, requiring access by key or buzz-in entry. Her relationship with her 32-year-old boyfriend continued during this period, although there is no record of a public dispute between them. On the day of the incident, the 32-year-old boyfriend reportedly arrived at Davonye Cummings' apartment. Surveillance footage or witness reports confirming the time of his arrival have not been released publicly. There was no sign of forced entry, suggesting he was either let in willingly or had a key. Police concluded there were no indications of break-in. There was no damage to doors, locks, or windows. The lack of forced entry was one of the early indicators that Davonye Cummings knew her killer and allowed them inside the apartment. Based on the scene observed by police and later shared through public records, the apartment appeared to be in normal condition. Nothing was out of place. There were no broken items, no furniture was overturned, and nothing indicated a struggle. This confirmed that the entry was voluntary. Investigators documented the scene as calm and undisturbed apart from the Davonye Cummings condition. Upon further investigation, detectives stated there were no visible injuries on Davonye Cummings' body apart from a single gunshot wound. There were no bruises or cuts that would suggest a physical altercation took place before the shooting. Additionally, no defensive wounds were found, and the surroundings remained intact. All of this supported the theory that the shooting occurred without resistance, possibly at close range, and likely without warning. The fatal wound was caused by a single gunshot. The caliber and origin of the firearm have not been disclosed. Ballistic evidence was collected from the scene. No shell casings or weapon were reported to have been left behind. The medical examiner confirmed death by gunshot trauma. The time of death was estimated to be shortly after the boyfriend entered the apartment. The shot was not heard by neighbors, or at least no noise complaints were made to police at the time. This could be due to use of a suppressor or soundproof walls, though this has not been officially confirmed. No surveillance audio has been made public. Following the shooting, Terrence Miles did not call 911 or emergency responders. Instead, he allegedly made a phone call to his mother. The content of this call has not been released by law enforcement, but multiple sources, including police statements and family interviews, suggest this call may have included a confession or a statement of what had occurred. There was no attempt to flee the scene immediately. It is unclear whether Terrence Miles remained at the apartment or left before police arrived. Police were not contacted by Terrence Miles directly at any point during the timeline. Sometime after the phone call, Terrence Miles' mother reportedly contacted law enforcement. It is believed that this tip led police to the Davonye Cummings apartment. In the early hours of the morning, Oakland Police Department officers arrived at a residential apartment. They had been notified through a tip. The informant reported a possible shooting inside. Officers entered after gaining access via the building's common entrance. Their focus was to secure the scene and ensure safety. They made their way to the Davonye Cummings apartment door. Upon entry, they followed standard procedure. Sweep the main rooms, living area, kitchen, bedrooms. In the primary bedroom, they found the body of a 19-year-old woman. She had one gunshot wound. She was already deceased. The gunshot wound was located in the torso. No other wounds were noted. Forensics confirmed death resulted directly from that single shot. There were no signs of forced entry. Locks were intact, no broken glass. Doors within the apartment showed no signs of forced opening. Furniture and personal belongings remained in original positions. There were no indications of a struggle. No overturned chairs, no scattered items, nothing out of place. No firearm was found at the scene during the initial sweep. Investigators took note of spent shell casing or bullet fragments, noted later in ballistics report. They secured the casing as potential evidence. They checked all areas inside and immediately outside the apartment before concluding no weapon remained. Reports do not yet confirm whether the Davonye Cummings for children were present inside the apartment. Police did find two infants, the newborn twins, near the scene. They were unharmed. The other two children, previously acknowledged to be older, were reportedly not present possibly elsewhere with relatives or not at home. Official statements about their location are still pending. Neighbors were interviewed locally. None reported hearing a struggle or raised voices. Some claimed hearing a single loud bang at an undetermined time. Number 911 call recording has been publicly released. The lack of multiple sounds supports the single shot finding. Forensics team established protocols, secured all entry points, documented the layout through photography and notes, collected biological samples where Davonye Cummings was found, dusting and swabbing done on high-touch areas, doors, handles, surfaces. Officers cataloged and collected the shell casing for tracing. Investigators noted metadata from the Davonye Cummings mobile phone. A call had been placed minutes after estimated time of death. That call went to Terrence Miles' mother, a key connection. The contents of the call have not been publicly disclosed. Police consider a potential turning point for establishing the timeline. Ballistics confirmed the bullet angle and proximity consistent with a close-range shot. Medical examiners noted absence of defensive wounds. Davonye Cummings did not struggle. There were no other injuries, signs of restraint, or indications of force removal. Building management checked surveillance videos for common areas. None show forced entry or Terrence Miles handling a firearm. Investigators reviewed digital data, phone logs, possible text messages, and app usage. Protective measures were taken for the infants at the scene. They were turned over to child services. Terrence Miles has reportedly in a romantic relationship with the 19-year-old female Davonye Cummings. At the time of her death, they were still involved. Authorities have confirmed their connection through both witness interviews and communication records found on the Davonye Cummings phone. Terrence Miles' full identity was released shortly after his arrest, but for clarity, this document will refer to him as the accused. He was apprehended after his own mother contacted authorities to report what she had been told. According to police records, the accused made a phone call shortly after the shooting, not to 911, but to his mother. The contents of that phone call have not been fully disclosed to the public, but investigators say it provided key information that helped them identify him as the primary suspect. The accused was located and arrested by Oakland law enforcement without incident. He did not resist arrest, and there was no attempt to flee the area. Law enforcement reports indicate that he was taken into custody within 48 hours of the discovery of Davonye Cummings' body. The relationship between the accused and Davonye Cummings had been ongoing for an undisclosed period of time. Based on phone records and social media evidence reviewed by investigators, the relationship was known to close friends and family of Davonye Cummings. There were no public or documented incidents of domestic disputes or police reports related to violence between the two. However, detectives continue to investigate private communications and any potential prior issues that were never reported to law enforcement. The age difference between the accused and Davonye Cummings, 13 years, has been noted in police documents, but there is currently no indication that the relationship itself was considered illegal or under investigation for statutory violations. Both parties were reportedly in consensual contact at the time of the incident. Authorities have not stated whether the accused was living with Davonye Cummings or just visiting her on the day of the incident. However, they have confirmed that he had free access to her apartment and there were no signs of forced entry, which supports the theory that he was allowed inside willingly. The accused has a prior criminal record, although it is not extensive. Public records confirm at least one previous arrest related to property damage and another involving a domestic dispute with a different individual. Neither of these cases resulted in long-term imprisonment. Law enforcement has stated that while these incidents were not directly related to Davonye Cummings, they are being reviewed as part of the broader investigation into his behavioral patterns. Court filings from a case 3 years ago reveal that the accused was once issued a restraining order by a former partner. The details of that case are sealed, but investigators confirmed that the existence of that order was considered during the charging process for the current case. At the time of his arrest, the accused was not on probation or parole. He was, however, unemployed and had no current source of income listed in the police report. Investigators are reviewing his financial background to determine if any economic motive could be linked to the crime. Authorities investigating the murder of a 19-year-old mother in Oakland, California, quickly narrowed in on several key facts. The first and most telling clue was a lack of forced entry. When police arrived at the scene, there were no signs that the apartment door had been broken into. No locks were damaged. No windows were smashed. Everything appeared to be in place. This led investigators to conclude that Davonye Cummings knew her killer and had willingly allowed the person into the apartment. There was no indication of an intruder or robbery. This finding removed the possibility of a random act of violence and pointed instead towards someone familiar, someone with access or trust. Next, detectives noted the absence of a physical struggle. The crime scene was undisturbed. Furniture remained untouched. Household items were in their usual positions. Davonye Cummings had no visible defensive wounds, and nothing in the apartment showed signs of a fight. This further supported the theory that the crime was swift and calculated, likely happening without warning. Terrence Miles did not force an encounter. Davonye Cummings may have been sitting or standing still when the fatal shot was fired. The cause of death was a single gunshot wound. Ballistics confirmed only one bullet had been fired. This is a critical detail. A single shot is often associated with a targeted act rather than a chaotic or spontaneous one. Multiple shots can suggest panic or emotion. One shot suggests premeditation or precise intent. The placement of the wound and distance from which the bullet was fired are part of the autopsy report. But publicly, officials emphasize the singular nature of the act. The gun used was not recovered at the scene, and police believe it was taken by the Terrence Miles after shooting. A major turning point in the investigation came from a phone call made shortly after the incident. This phone call was not to 911 or emergency services. It was reportedly made to the Terrence Miles' mother. According to early reports, Terrence Miles called her after the shooting and allegedly admitted to what had happened. The mother, in turn, alerted authorities. This phone call gave police both a timeline and a lead. It placed the Terrence Miles at the scene during the critical window of time and provided indirect confirmation of the act. Law enforcement is working to obtain full call records, transcripts, and audio if available. This call may become a central piece of evidence in court. The timeline between the shooting and police arrival is also under review. Based on phone records and dispatch logs, the shooting occurred during the early morning hours. Terrence Miles' phone call to his mother happened minutes after the gunshot. It took additional time for her to process the information and then contact law enforcement. Officers arrived shortly after receiving the call. When they entered the apartment, they found the Davonye Cummings already deceased. The time gap, possibly ranging from 10 to 30 minutes, may have given Terrence Miles enough time to leave the scene, dispose of the weapon, and avoid immediate arrest. Surveillance footage from the surrounding area is being examined to trace Terrence Miles' movements. Investigators are also analyzing digital evidence, including phone records, text messages, and surveillance video. Terrence Miles' call logs are being reviewed to determine who else he contacted before or after the shooting. Any deleted messages are being retrieved through forensic phone analysis. If Davonye Cummings sent any messages shortly before her death, those could offer insight into her state of mind or who was present. Police are also reviewing Davonye Cummings' social media accounts for any communication that could be relevant. Surveillance cameras in the apartment complex, nearby buildings, and street intersections are being pulled for footage. Investigators are looking for images of Terrence Miles entering or leaving the apartment. Timestamps from the video footage are being matched with phone data to create an exact timeline of events. These visuals, combined with digital communication, could serve as strong evidence in building a clear sequence of actions before and after crime. Authorities are collecting data from nearby devices, including smart home devices, if any were installed. These can sometimes record motion, audio, or environmental changes. Even if the apartment lacked internal surveillance, noise sensors or smart doorbells in the hallway may have captured critical moments. Shortly after the homicide was reported, Oakland Police Department take Terrence Miles into custody within days of the incident. He was arrested in Oakland, California. The Alameda County District Attorney's Office charged him with first-degree murder. This charge implies that prosecutors believe the act was premeditated and intentional. Depending on further evidence, there may be additional charges, such as unlawful possession of a firearm if Terrence Miles was not licensed to own a weapon. Upon arrest, Terrence Miles did not confess to the crime. According to police reports and preliminary court documents, he exercised his right to remain silent. He did not make a formal statement to detectives. No written confession was submitted. He did not enter a plea of guilty during initial arraignment. The lack of confession means the case will proceed through standard legal channels unless a plea agreement is reached. Terrence Miles appeared in preliminary hearings at the Alameda County Superior Court. These hearings are part of California's criminal court process and serve to determine whether there is enough evidence for the case to move forward to trial. The prosecution presented early findings, including Davonye Cummings was found with a single gunshot wound, no signs of forced entry. A phone call made by Terrence Miles to his mother shortly after the gunshot, statements from family members who received that call or were contacted afterward. The defense did not present an alibi at the preliminary hearing. No counter evidence was submitted at this stage. At the end of the preliminary hearing, the judge ruled that sufficient evidence existed to proceed to trial. As of the most recent court update, the case is proceeding toward a formal trial. However, plea negotiations are a standard part of criminal proceedings, and the district attorney's office may offer a plea agreement before trial begins. A jury will be selected. Witnesses such as family members, forensic experts, and police officers will testify. The phone call made by Terrence Miles will likely be used as key evidence. Terrence Miles may agree to plead guilty to a lesser charge, such as second-degree murder or voluntary manslaughter. A plea agreement would avoid trial and lead directly to sentencing. As of now, no plea deal has been announced, and the court is preparing for a possible full trial. The Alameda County District Attorney's Office stated in open court that the case qualifies as first-degree murder due to the nature of the incident and lack of forced entry. The prosecutor indicated that the relationship between Davonye Cummings and Terrence Miles would be central to the case. Davonye Cummings' recent childbirth and her status as a mother therefore were acknowledged as part of the narrative for motive. The public defender or defense attorney has not provided a detailed public statement. The defense team has requested more time to review evidence. No formal statements have been released to the media on the Terrence Miles behalf. As part of standard procedure in homicide cases, the defense may request a mental health evaluation to assess the Terrence Miles' mental fitness to stand trial. No public report has confirmed whether a mental health evaluation was ordered. A licensed psychiatrist or psychologist will assess the Terrence Miles. The evaluation will determine if he understands the charges and can participate in his defense. If found unfit, the case will pause for mental health treatment. If found fit, trial proceedings will resume as scheduled. Initial reports confirmed that the children were removed from the apartment by responding officers and were handed over Alameda County Child Protective Services. Due to the immediate nature of the situation and the lack of a second legal guardian present, temporary emergency custody was granted to CPS. Family members of the deceased, including her mother and sister, expressed interest in assuming full custody of the children. A formal custody review process was initiated through Juvenile Dependency Court. Social workers conducted background checks and home assessments to determine the suitability of the relatives' living conditions. As of the latest available update, the children were placed in kinship care under the supervision of Davonye Cummings' maternal aunt, who resides in Contra Costa County. The placement remains subject to regular CPS review, with long-term guardianship to be decided in family court based on recommendations from child welfare authorities. The death of a teenage mother, especially one who had just given birth, prompted reactions within the local Oakland community. However, public demonstrations were limited. No large-scale protests or vigils were reported in the media. Several community-based organizations that focus on women's safety and youth advocacy issued brief statements acknowledging the death and urging improved support systems for young mothers in high-risk environments. These statements were primarily published on social media and local nonprofit platforms. In addition, local childcare centers in the area where Davonye Cummings previously sought services confirmed that staff were aware of her passing and had begun coordinating support options for the remaining children. An online crowdfunding campaign was launched by a friend of Davonye Cummings' family to raise money for funeral expenses and the care of her 4 children. The GoFundMe page, verified by family members, reached approximately $18,000 within 2 weeks. The funds were designated for burial costs, legal custody processing, and baby care essentials such as formula, diapers, and clothing. Memorial services were held in late March 2025 at a local funeral home in East Oakland. Attendance was limited to family and close friends, with no public media access permitted. In addition to individual donations, a local women's health organization offered free counseling services to relatives of the deceased. These services included therapy sessions, grief support, and referrals to housing and childcare programs. Terrence Miles in the case, a 32-year-old male identified as Davonye Cummings' boyfriend, was arrested shortly after the incident. He was charged with first-degree murder. Police reports indicate that he did not resist arrest. After the arrest, Terrence Miles was booked into Alameda County Jail. A preliminary court hearing was held within 48 hours, during which the judge denied bail based on severity of the charges and the risk of flight. The defense did not request immediate release and instead asked for a continuance to review the evidence. A public defender was appointed to represent Terrence Miles. The prosecution stated that digital evidence, including call records and text messages, may be used to establish intent. The court also approved a subpoena for the contents of Terrence Miles' phone and the 911 logs from the day of the incident. As of the most recent court filing, Terrence Miles has entered a plea of not guilty. The court has ordered a psychological evaluation to determine his mental fitness for trial. That evaluation is currently pending. The trial is expected to begin in October 2025, pending completion of the mental health review and evidence disclosure by both parties. If found guilty of first-degree murder, Terrence Miles faces a mandatory sentence of 25 years to life under California law, with no possibility of parole for first 25 years. Additional charges, such as unlawful possession of firearm or endangerment of minors, may be added if further evidence supports those claims. However, no such charges have been filed at the time of this report. The prosecution has not indicated any plans to offer a plea deal. A jury trial is expected. Court proceedings will continue to be monitored by legal observers and local reporters. Updates will be made public through the Alameda County Superior Court docket and official law enforcement channels. If this story gripped your heart and left you questioning the truth, don't forget to hit that like button and share with others who need to hear it. For more chilling true crime stories that dive deep into the mysteries behind these tragedies, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest updates, investigations, and thought-provoking discussions. Thank you for being part of this journey with us as we uncover the truth and seek justice. Together, we can make a difference. Stay safe, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next one.